Hello, everybody, and welcome to the VMX show. This is, I'm not sure, because I skipped a week. It's Season 5, Episode 7, actually, I think. Yeah, it's Episode 7, so I hope you all are having a good day. Yeah, I skipped last week because I was sick, but, actually, no, I didn't skip last week because I was sick. I wasn't sick yet. I skipped last week because it was Super Bowl Sunday, so that's the real reason I skipped last week. I actually got sick after the Super Bowl, a few hours afterwards. Great game, by the way. Don't want to talk about the game. I do want to talk about the game, but I'm not going to because probably a lot of you don't care, so I'm not going to bother you with the football talk. But I'd like to think that I actually know that I got the food poisoning from a party on Saturday. So, the party was on Saturday. I went through the whole rest of the day and almost all of Sunday. Actually, it was technically Monday when I got sick because it was well after midnight when I started to feel the symptoms. And, I gotta say, I'd like to think that my mind was in charge, of course. My mind was saying, you can't get sick until after the Super Bowl. Because that would suck, So, it's amazing, mind over matter, It's been a slow news week, and I have 2 weeks worth of news, and it's really not that much. So, 2 slow news weeks, so it's going to be kind of a short show. I don't have a guest. I did get a comment from somebody here. Let me bring up my comments here. Somebody said, see if I can bring it up. Where is it? Somebody said they asked me to be on the show and I never answered them. I don't know where it is. Well, the point is that, Ice Dude 32 said that. I actually asked you about being on your show, but you never replied to me. I've said it probably a couple of dozen times by now. If you want to be on the show, what you have to do is you have to get Skype, add me on Skype, and IM me, and we'll talk about it. Sending me a private message on YouTube is not going to do anything, because if I bother to reply, I'm only going to say the same thing. Get Skype, download it, install it, add me, and IM me on there, and we'll talk about it. You never talk to me about being on the show. All you did was send me a message saying, hey, if you want somebody to be on the show, I could be on the show. Yeah, that's great. Download Skype, install Skype, add me on Skype. It's Nick or VMX. You don't have to ask me what my name is on there. It's the same as it is everywhere else. And IM me, and we'll talk about it. So I go through this every week, but I'm just about done with that. I'm not even going to talk about it. So let's just move on to the... Actually, before I get to the news, let's move on to your questions and comments. Let's see. Quackenstein Monster. It's a great username. That is a great user. I like that. Quackenstein Monster sends me this. He says, with having Season 1 of the show in the VMX Show Classics and Season 2 no longer available on the original download site, would you be willing to put Season 2 on the VMX Show Classics as well? P.S. Just turned on Season 5, Episode 6 for the first time. Also watched Seasons 5, 1, 1, and 1 to 2. What? I don't know what he's saying here, so... if used, please call me Q-Ball as an alias. No, I'm not going to do that. You have a great username, Quackenstein Monster. And you want me to call you Q-Ball? It's terrible. You're not Q-Ball, you're Quackenstein Monster. It's awesome. Love the show, keep up the great work. Well, I hope to do that for you guys. Alright, let's move on. I got a comment here from Razarath92, says, important question. Oh, whenever somebody starts with important question, I always cringe, because it's never important. Would you rather get beaten down by juggalos or watch Shane Dawson's entire video library? Shane Dawson. Who is that? Alright, I'm going to look this person up before I make this decision. I don't think juggalos could beat anybody down, by the way. That's that Fred kid. You know what? I'll deal with the juggalos. Alright, moving along. CoolVid19 says, yes, I know, listen, I sorry. and I just got a Vita about 2 weeks ago, and online on a few games are good. What? Okay, let me read this person's entire thing from beginning to end the way they wrote it. Is it too much to ask for this to be coherent? Yes, I know, listen. I sorry. And I just got a Vita about 2 weeks ago, and online on a few games are good. So will you be playing online on the Vita? Wow, dude, where are you from? I mean, I gotta see Sarah real quick here. I don't know. I'm not gonna play online. I keep telling people I have no interest in online gaming, and I don't know how many different ways I can say it. So I have no interest in online gaming. I have no interest in online gaming. Savage Broadcast says, great video, as always, Necro. Before I ask my question, I want to share a bit of trivia in return for you answering my questions. Did you know the first Batman comic was based off a shadow pulp called Partners in Peril? Batman co-creator Bill Finger admitted this, and you can find it on good comic sites as well as the reprint of Partners. Actually, I didn't know that. That's interesting. In fact, Dennis O'Neil would write a crossover between the two Dark Knights in the 70s where Batman openly said the Shadow was his greatest influence. I read that. I didn't know about the Partners in Peril thing. He didn't ask your question. Oh, he posted it in a separate thing. Okay, he says, and as for my question, do you ever get tired of people whining about how everything is being remade, completely ignoring the fact that many classics are remakes, as well as the fact that they make up only a small percentage of what studios output? Absolutely, absolutely. I get really sick of that bullshit. And you know what? Nobody's forcing you to watch, a remake. I like remakes, and because it's interesting to see, a different or a new take on a classic, and they're not always terrible. So absolutely, I definitely get tired of that kind of whining. Definitely have to agree with that. Cobra DBS says, great show. Really liking this season thus far. So you mentioned the Wii U may be getting a name change. I hope it does get a different name because the Wii U is too close to the Wii and it just doesn't sound that great. So my question is, what would you like to see them name it? I do think they should keep the Wii branding. I do think they should keep that. That's like saying, they shouldn't call it PlayStation 3 because it's too close to PlayStation 2. You know what I mean? I do think it's important branding. I don't think Wii U though. I'll get used to it if that does wind up being what it's called, but I don't know what I would call it. I wouldn't call it Wii 2. I don't know. I'm not the kind of person to ask that question, but I would keep the Wii branding in there somewhere. So, moving along. Mr. Go Lucky Fish says, thanks for reading my comment. To answer your question, I want to see them fail because I'm afraid that as emotion controls get more and more popular, they'll be implemented as a gimmick much more welcome to 5 years ago, okay? I feel this could significantly detract from the core gameplay of games in the future. I will admit that I am horrendously biased because they have never appealed to me, and I haven't had fun when so don't play them. So, this has been around for a long time now, and it hasn't done they're still what you call core gaming, which is a ridiculous concept anyway. I'm going to move on here. The Gameables, that's another, I like that username, the Gameables. I don't know why. Welcome to the Gameables. He says, how do you decide which series you're going to do for clearing confusion? Well, it has to be, there are a few criteria. It has to be confusing. It has to be interesting to me, and it has to be something that I can find information on. So I hope that answers your question. Dyslexic Gamer says, are we alone in the universe? And if we would... Oh, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. And if we... Alright, I read it wrong, but the real thing is still a nightmare. I'll give this guy... I'm going to give this guy... slack here. I'm going to cut him some slack because according to his username he's dyslexic. But this is what he wrote. Are we alone in the universe? And if we not, would, as in would, like knock on wood, would you like to meet aliens? Okay. The statistic... Okay, I'm going to wax poetical here. The statistical chance of us being the only Earth not you, just Earth in general, the statistical chance of Earth being the only planet in the universe to have life on it is ridiculous. It's astronomical. There are billions and billions of stars out there, and many of these stars have their own solar systems full of planets. And while there are no planets in the immediate vicinity close to us that support life as we understand it, that doesn't mean that there aren't any anywhere. As a matter of fact, it's actually been proven that there was once life on Mars. Because they found fossils. Microscopic life, very simple life, bacteria and whatnot. But that has been, scientifically proven. They found fossils. And unless you're one of those kind of maniacs who said, like Satan put the fossils on Mars to fuck with people or whatever, that pretty much proves that we're not alone in the universe. Would I like to meet aliens? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say no to that, because if aliens were to come to Earth, I'm going to agree with what a great scientist, Carl Sagan, once said, and I kind of aped his billions of billions line there. If aliens come to Earth, it's not going to be for, just to stop and to have a chat and some coffee. They're probably coming for a bad purpose. So no, I wouldn't like to meet any aliens. So let's move along here. See, where was I? Dark Hill Pick 28 says, "What is your least favorite short story collection from Stephen King?" P.S. Sorry about the comment on the previous episode, which is about the Sci-Fi Channel. Favorite? Actually, I think that his short story collections have kind of gotten better as time goes on. The last one that I read the entirety of was Everything's Eventual, which I would say is my favorite. Least favorite would have to be Night Shift. It had some interesting stories, but they were a lot of the really old stuff that he'd written pre-Carrie, and a lot of it was not too good. So there you have that. Let's see. Okay, The Last Samurai 14 says, "What do you think of Final Fantasy 13-2 or the..." All right. I'm just going to move on. The Originals... okay. Yeah, let me move up here. I don't have his whole thing in the frame here. Yeah, just had to scroll up a bit. Okay, so I still got to scroll up. Man, this is... Okay, all right, here we go. Hey, Necro, love the show. Have a few questions. 1. Just a few days ago, Capcom announced that Pac-Man and Bad Box Hard Mega Man will be exclusive characters for the PlayStation 3 Vita versions of Street Fighter Cross Tekken. The question sort of branches out into two different questions from here. The first part is, why would Capcom choose to screw over the 360 owners of the version-exclusive characters that Capcom and Namco owns the rights to, like Toro, Kuro, and Cole, are unlike Toro, Kuro, and Cole, which are, Sony-based characters. The second part of my question is, now that there's a total of 5 version exclusives in the Sony version of the game, do you think that Capcom will try to put something to make the 360 version stand out? Personally, I can't see what they're trying to do with this, other than perhaps trying to manipulate the fighting game market so that it becomes more in Sony's favor. I'm actually going to be talking about Street Fighter Cross Tekken a little bit later, but it has nothing to do with trying to screw anybody over. I mean, they have no reason to make it more in Sony's favor. Otherwise, if they wanted to do that, then they wouldn't even release it on the Xbox 360. Okay, they wouldn't even release it there. I'm not, when it comes to exclusive characters, it comes to a deal that is stricken between the publisher, which is Capcom, and the developer, which is also Capcom, and the distributor, which is Sony. And they were able to come to a deal with Sony. Now, they were not able to come to a deal with Microsoft. They wanted to come to a deal with Microsoft. The same thing happened with Mortal Kombat when they announced that Kratos would be the PlayStation 3 exclusive character. And Ed Boon fully intended to have a 360 character in there, but they weren't able to reach a deal with Microsoft. So really, it has nothing to do with anything but the business side of things. Sony is very aggressive about trying to get exclusive characters on their consoles, because obviously they want to swing things over to their side, and they want people to buy it for PlayStation 3 and Vita and not the 360. So they're very aggressive in saying, hey, why don't you put, some exclusive characters like Pac-Man or original box art Mega Man on there, and we'll pay you X amount of money for it to be exclusive. And it's not that different from something being exclusive to a certain store because that store bought a whole bunch of it ahead of time. Such as, Xenoblade Chronicles is only going to be sold at GameStop because GameStop bought them all. They made a deal to get it out in America as a GameStop exclusive. So that's what's going on there. Let's move on to a second question. Even when I just look at Japanese charts, it's pretty painful looking at the difference in sales between the 3DS and the Vita. I understand the 3DS has been out for a year longer than the Vita, but despite that, the Vita is being outsold by its predecessor, the PSP. Personally, I don't want to see the Vita fail, but at the moment it's not exactly selling like a hot new console. What would help increase the sales in your opinion? Well, more games, and you got to remember that consoles always sell poorly right away, and take it unless it's a Nintendo thing. But even in the case of Nintendo, the 3DS, as you remember, did very poorly in the very beginning. I mean, it had a surge in the first week, and then it dipped down to like WonderSwan color levels. And it wasn't until recently the 3DS started selling well. The PSP didn't sell well at all until the last few years anyway. As for the reason that the PSP numbers are higher than the Vita numbers, you have to remember that the PSP is being released worldwide. And when I talk about Japanese sales charts, I'm actually... Japan is the most of it, but the Japan sales charts are actually... they include other regions other than Japan. It includes China, it includes Southeast Asia, it includes parts of Africa and the Middle East, whereas... the Vita has only been released in Japan, so that's part of it. But a lot of it is also a slow start. Sony consoles in particular always have a slow start. The PlayStation 1 had a slow start. The PlayStation 2, which had a very slow start, it was being outsold by the Dreamcast when it first came out. I mean, not the first week. The first week has that big surge of people buying it, at launch, and then it was being beaten by the Dreamcast. And now the PlayStation 2 has become the highest selling console of all time. So that's what's going on there. But good questions there from L the Original. Spikester55, Dragon Quest VII and Final Fantasy VII. Pick one and mention why. Dragon Quest VII because it's better. Moving on. PS3 TNA says another reason why the Xbox 3 will not have the block on used games is because that would make all the consoles useless after the generation is over. Absolutely, but of course they would love that to happen so that you buy the new one. They would love that to happen. It's not going to happen, but they would love that to happen. Red Devil Dazzy 2007 says, good episode, Necro. Keep up the good work on the show. My question is, have you seen any of the Sonic cartoons? If so, alright, moving on. I hate those questions. Will you guys stop asking me, have you seen this or have you played this? If so, what's your opinion? As are boring questions. I mean, L the Original... Going back to him, he had some very thoughtful, insightful, and interesting questions. Pattern it more after what he said. Let's see. 3 Project 25013 says, sup, man, kick-ass show you have there. Question for you, what metal concerts you visited and what you've liked the most? Oh, man, I mean, I've been to see, Dream Theater, I've been to see Megadeth, I've been to see... I saw actually the two of them together at Gigantor, but that also included Fear Factory and Nevermore and a bunch of other bands. And I've seen the Scorpions and Transatlantic. Well, that's not metal, but I've been to a shitload of concerts. I saw Queensryche and I seen Dream Theater like seven or 8 times. So a lot of the concerts I go to are that or related. I saw James LaBrie on his own. Best concert I've ever been to, though, was actually James LaBrie's solo concert in Poughkeepsie, New York, back in 2005. That was great. Jip Reindeer says, a visual interface for PC laptops? Yes. I was just talking about how useful this would be as a sales prompt, attention grabber for businesses. Move your hands and browse a database of items to see what items look like and shop for what is in stock from the street front. I think he's talking about the Kinect for Windows. You're not going to be shopping for what's in stock from a street front, because you'd have to have the Kinect sensor sitting there, and people would rip them off or break them or whatever. As a sales prop, why not just use an iPad at that point? Personally, I mean, they have the touch screens. I don't think, and they, I mean, I don't know. I'm not feeling this whole Kinect for Windows things. Moving on, Dave Cornfan says, great episode as always, Necro. I'm going to blame the poor grammar and the comments on lolcats. I tried my house cheeseburger. Yeah, probably you're right. That has something to do with it. But then again, people had bad grammar on the internet before lolcats were even a thing, so... it certainly hasn't helped, though. Okay. What attracts you so much to Skyrim? I played the game at my friend's house, and it seemed like... Okay, there you go, lolcat. You can have a cheeseburger. It seemed like it had too much dialogue and not enough action. What? Oh, I'm reading somebody else's... Alright. See, I fail, because I scrolled. Okay, I'll get to that nonsense in a second. Okay, no, Dave Cornfan, I'm sorry, guys. Great lolcats, okay. I asked you once if you read the Marvel adaptation of The Stand. You said you did. No, I said I was reading it. I just finished reading the very last issue of the comic, and it has now become my favorite comic series I have read. Well, read the book. It's even better. I was wondering if you've read it, all of it, and of your thoughts on it. No, actually, because I don't buy the individual issues. I wait for the hardcover collection, so I'll be waiting a while for the last one. Okay, Super Scarnori says, hi, Necro, what's up? Here's a question. What attracts you so much to Skyrim? I played the game at my friend's house, and it seems like it had too much dialogue and not enough action. It's an RPG. Role-playing game. It's supposed to be like that. Are you serious? Are you serious? It's not an action game. I'm going to move on. I'm not even going to read the rest of this guy's comment. I can't. I'm sorry. My brain will leak out of my ears, and then I'll be stupid like him. Alright, IceDude32 says, I actually asked you... Alright, I read that already. Okay, Spikester55 says, by the way, Necro, I put Link in the Battle Royale. Oh yeah, I remember that one. Because whenever I type Link versus a character and get to a forums, it doesn't matter who it is, the fanboys are like, Link wins, no problem. Like, I get that they love the Legend of Zelda series. I do too, but it's not the best fucking series. Nor does that matter if it's the best series or not. Just because something's the best doesn't mean that Link would... I don't know. Is he going to beat Godzilla? I mean, that's really weird. The Legend of Zelda fanboys sometimes piss me off more than the Halo fanboys. Yeah, they're pretty bad. Let me lay out some stone cold facts. Legend of Zelda is a top 10 series, maybe 6th or 7th place. My number one will always be Castlevania. Just the best, no questions. I fully agree with that. I actually used to put Zelda at number 2 right after Castlevania. Right now, I'm kind of over the whole Zelda series, so I don't know. I'd have to give it some thought, but I don't know if it would be number 2 anymore. Another comment from Jupe Reindeer. He says, woohoo! News has it the Simpsons, the original arcade, is finally coming out for consoles. I'll be talking about that later. Am I allowed to ask for commentary play on that? Yeah, of course. Actually, now you can, because I do take requests for arcade games. However, I have already done a video on it with Julie, so no, you can't ask for that. And finally, WWE Nintendo Fan 01 says, do you watch The Big Bang Theory? No, I'd rather go to town with my balls with a cheese grater than watch The Big Bang Theory. It's not funny. I find it vaguely offensive. It's like, you know, like back in the old vaudeville days, they had this comedy routine called blackface, where a bunch of white guys would put shoe polish on their faces, and they would look black. And then they would go around, oh, hold it, eating the watermelons, yum, yum, you know. They would act like a bunch of assholes while wearing blackface. And this was popular for a time, but it's really offensive to black people. And saying blackface is sort of, the flag for something being offensive. I mean, it was even in some old Bugs Bunny cartoons, which had been banned because of that. They don't play them anymore. I mean, they would have something like a gun would explode and then like Bugs Bunny's face would be covered in black soot, and then he'd act like an asshole, like
oh, they're watermelons or something. And people said, that's offensive, that's racist. And they were right, it is offensive and racist. So they stopped playing those cartoons, and then you can't buy them or anything. Well, Big Bang Theory is like blackface for geeks. A bunch of fucking actors thinking that we're going to tap into the geek culture, and we're going to talk about, oh my god, we're such nerds. And it's just... The only reason that I've seen even more than a second of the Big Bang Theory is that they fucking play it constantly at GameStop. So if you're there for more than 2 seconds, you'll likely see clips from the Big Bang Theory. And I just want to just grab PSP games and shove them into my ears so I don't have to hear it anymore. So, no. To answer your question, I don't watch the show.
All right, well, let's move on to the news, huh? All right, so I don't know if you guys heard about this Minecraft racial slur, and I am going to be saying the slur. So if you're a Democrat, you might want to put your head between your legs and start crying now, because I am going to say the word. Now, what happened here is Minecraft is interesting because you can actually play it in just about any language, and they had a lot of different people working on the different translations, and there's one language called Afrikaans, which is a language that's spoken in South Africa and Namibia. I can't say it. Namibia. Sorry, why can't I say that? Apologies for any of my viewers from Namibia, which is 0. But if you would select Afrikaans, instead of saying single player on the menu, it would say, you're a nigger. Now, obviously, this is something that a nasty person put in there who was working on the game, and it has nothing to do with Notch, the creator of the game. And once it was found, it was removed. But I thought that, what is the point of doing that? You get a little giggle out of it, I guess, if you're a racist, but that is just terrible. It really is terrible. Wow. What is the point of that? So, haters gotta hate, but I just wanted to point that out because that is just terrible. Alright, good news for fans of the Phoenix Wright series. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney 5 is a thing that will be coming out. No news right now on platform, release date, characters, anything like that, but it is called Ace Attorney 5, so and that is announced officially from Capcom, so that's going on there. Speaking of Capcom, Resident Evil Revelations was released with a really embarrassing typo on the box art, and this is just... I can understand how it got made, the typo. It's a pretty common type of typo, but the fact that it got released to stores like this, some versions of the game that were released right away, if you look at the spine, it says Resident Evil Revelations, but the I and the T in Revelations are transposed, so it's spelled Revelaitons, so it's Revelaitons, which is just ridiculous. That's just terrible. So I just want to point that out. I believe that Capcom is offering replacement box art to anybody who has these. So if you want, you might want to ask for that. But since it's just the first run, if you do have the Resident Evil Revelations game, that's some 3DS, by the way, with the typo, it might someday be worth something. So there is that too. Nintendo has said that there may be DLC coming for Super Mario 3D Land or other games on the 3DS. So that really not much to say there, but it seems like a natural choice. Super Mario 3D Land has been a huge runaway success, as you would expect from a Mario game. It's now surpassed Zelda as the top-selling game on the 3DS. Here's what Satoru Iwata said exactly. Up until now, once customers who had bought a game got tired of it, they would never play it and would
never draw public attention again. Having said that, what if we could provide add-on content through the network? As I referred to before, for example, so this is the idea of supplying new stages to Super Mario users who want to play the game more, but have completed the game and lost interest in the existing stages. So congratulations to Satoru Iwata, who stepped into the modern times. So welcome to about 6 years ago. You can now get Steam on your mobile phones, so that's pretty cool. Just figured I'd mention that. I believe it's all platforms. I don't know too much about different cell phone platforms, but I believe it's all the different platforms. But you can get Steam on there. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at it right now. It says it's both iOS and Android devices, and it is available for all via the iTunes and Android marketplaces. So there you go. There's a new Skyrim version out. Skyrim 1.4 is available for Steam, which is, the PC version, and will be available soon for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. It hasn't come out yet, but I mentioned the beta test for Skyrim 1.4 in the last episode, which was on PC. As for what's being fixed, it's a lot of stuff. I couldn't even list it here. It would take me a long time. But it's a lot of the bugged quests are being fixed, and a lot of the PlayStation 3 issues are being fixed. So hopefully when the PlayStation 3 version of this patch comes out, Skyrim will become a lot more playable on that particular console. As somebody already mentioned in the questions and comments section, the Simpsons arcade game is hitting Xbox Live Arcade for $10, so that's pretty cool. Everybody talks about this game like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's not. It's okay, but it was fun. Back in the day, that was a lot of fun. I think $10 is a little much. I think it should have been a little less than that for that particular game, but considering it's never really been released on consoles at all, the only home version of it was on PC, and that was not a very good version. So you can get that for 800 Microsoft points. News for the Final Fantasy X remake for PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita. Well, it's not a remake. Square Enix is saying do not call Final Fantasy X for PlayStation 3 and Vita a remake. As a matter of fact, they are classifying it as a remaster. So, essentially, don't think of it like a remake would be something like Dragon Quest 4, 5, and 6 on the DS, where it's a complete remake. Whereas this is more like Resident Evil 4 or Eco or Shadow of the Colossus or God of War Collection, or any of those being released for PlayStation 3 with higher resolution graphics. So that's what they're going on. I have a quote here from Shinji Hashimoto, who says, "The screen is much prettier than the original." Wonderful. It's a very bizarre thing to say. Say goodbye to the PlayStation Network. PSN will soon be no more. It is be replaced by SEN, the Sony Entertainment Network. This will be implemented to your PlayStation 3s, your Vitas, and your PSP through a firmware update, which will be moved across automatically and hopefully securely. And they say this will establish a global comprehensive network platform of services across games, movies, music, and more, all accessible from one convenient account. So they're sort of consolidating, and I really do appreciate what they're doing with Sony Entertainment Network, and I think it's a good idea. As for the name, it's unfortunate that they have to drop the PlayStation branding, and SEN is not as good sounding as PSN, but I digress. I talked about the possibility in the last episode of there being a Final Fantasy 13-3 because of the open-ended ending to Final Fantasy 13-2. Well, I can tell you that according to Square Enix, that was never their intention, and that the story of Final Fantasy 13 will be continued through downloadable content. So that's what's going on there. The first story downloadable content is available. I even got it. It unlocks a new Coliseum area, and that you can fight Lightning and another guy, a commander guy, and if you beat them, they have the chance of dropping a crystal, which means you can add them to your party as summonable monsters, so that's pretty cool. Mass Effect 3 is coming this year and is seen as being the close of a trilogy, but it will not be the last game in the series, as many people have assumed. Of course it's not going to be the last game in the series. The series makes a lot of money, but they've come out and said that this will not be the end of Mass Effect. So expect there to be more Mass Effect games after Mass Effect 3. More bad news for people who ran out and got the 3DS right away. As you remember, it was originally $250, and then the price was cut to a staggering $170. Well, the 3DS is getting another price cut right before the Vita's coming out. They are cutting the 3DS down to $150, and some stores have already cut the price, including GameStop. So if you don't have a 3DS, there's no better time to buy than now. So there's a new Little Big Planet game coming out. Not another platforming game, however, it will be a kart racing game. So that's the thing. This was confirmed via Twitter from Sony's PlayStation Twitter. So they're working on a Little Big Planet kart racing game, and that will have more information soon. So they said it will have PlayStation Move support, and there will be a Move racing wheel peripheral. Gee, I wonder what that has to do with anything to do with the fact that one of the best-selling games of all time is Mario Kart Wii with the wheel. Alright, moving on. Biohazard and Valve are going at it, and this is really interesting. Basically, they're going at it over the trademark of Dota. Now, Dota is not even a thing that they came up with. It was something that the community came up with, basically. So this is interesting. Blizzard filed a notice of opposition with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office seeking to block Valve from trademarking the word Dota. Now, this is interesting because the word has been used exclusively referring to not a Blizzard product, but a mod of a Blizzard product. And I'm not sure exactly why Valve is trying to trademark Dota. I have to actually side with Valve on this, and I'll tell you why. Because Valve may be working on some sort of product that uses the word Dota. Blizzard has never worked on a product that uses the word Dota, and they have no claim to it. That is something that was a mod, so it really has nothing to do with Blizzard at all. So that's kind of really interesting. Now, good news for RPG fans who may have missed out on Radiant Historia, an amazing RPG for the DS that was published by Atlas and had a very low print run, is already sold out everywhere and has become a very rare and sought-after game. Well, recently, as a matter of fact, if I did this story, if I had done the VMX show last Sunday, I would have done a story on Atlas asking people on their Facebook if we release another print run of Radiant Historia, will you guys buy it? And they got over 12,000 likes on Facebook, so they're going to do it. Radiant Historia will be reshipped. So if you missed out on this great JRPG on the DS, don't miss out on it again. Just wanted to definitely let you guys know about that. So that's going to be about it on the news here. So let's get over to the sales figures. Now, the sales figures, I do have the sales figures for the past 2 weeks because I skipped last week. I decided to be kind because there were a lot of interesting games coming out and whatnot, and I wanted to give you guys both weeks. So first, let's go to Japan. Now, here's the sales charts for Japan for the week ending in January 29th. The top-selling game was Armored Core 5 on the PlayStation 3, which sold 164,981 copies. Resident Evil Revelations on the 3DS sold 151,603 copies. Tales of Innocence R for PlayStation Vita sold 54,820 copies. Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS sold 29,249 copies. Monster Hunter 3G on the 3DS sold 26,713 copies. Armored Core 5 on the Xbox 360 sold 24,594 copies. Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS sold 23,315 copies. The Idolmaster Gravure for You Volume 4, for PlayStation 3, that sold 18,160 copies. Rhythm Thief and the Emperor's Treasure, that's on the 3DS, and it sold 15,029 copies. And Inazuma 11 Go on the 3DS sold 10,336 copies. Moving on to the next week, this is still in Japan. This is the week ending in February 5th. Resident Evil Revelations was the number one selling game. That's on the 3DS. It sold 43,897 copies. Soul Calibur 5 on PlayStation 3 sold 33,952 copies. Photokano on PSP, that sold 33,185 copies. Ragnarok Odyssey, that's on PlayStation Vita, that sold 31,514 copies. Armored Core 5 on the PlayStation 3 sold 29,187 copies. Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS sold 27,005 copies. Monster Hunter 3G on the 3DS sold 25,226 copies. Gran Turismo 5 on PlayStation 3 sold 23,162 copies. Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS sold 22,868 copies. And this is an interesting one. Dragon Age 2 for PlayStation 3 sold 19,256 copies. That's appearing on the Japanese charts for the first time. I believe it was actually just released in Japan. So there you go. Wow. Moving on to Europe. So here's Europe, the week ending in January 28th. The top selling game was Resident Evil Revelations on the 3DS. That sold 58,848 copies. Just Dance 3 on the Wii sold 50,282 copies. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 for PlayStation 3 sold 43,552 copies. Zumba Fitness on the Wii sold 36,425 copies. FIFA Soccer 12 on PlayStation 3 sold 34,633 copies. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 on the Xbox 360 sold 32,166 copies. Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS sold 32,144 copies. Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS sold 27,119 copies. Star Wars The Old Republic on PC sold 26,156 copies. And Kinect Adventures on the Xbox 360 sold 25,976 copies. Moving on to the next week, in Europe, the top-selling game was Final Fantasy XIII-2 for PlayStation 3, sold 264,897 copies. Final Fantasy XIII-2 on Xbox 360 sold 145,421 copies. Metal Gear Solid HD Collection for PlayStation 3 sold 90,929 copies. Metal Gear Solid HD Collection for Xbox 360 sold 65,604 copies. Just Dance 3 on the Wii sold 40,816 copies. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 on PlayStation 3 sold 40,663 copies. Soul Calibur 5 on the PlayStation 3 sold 34,957 copies. FIFA Soccer 12 on PlayStation 3 sold 33,110 copies. Zumba Fitness on the Wii sold 30,927 copies. And Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS sold 29,869 copies. Moving on to America. So here's America, the week ending in January 28th. The best-selling game was Just Dance 3 on the Wii, which sold 58,250 copies. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 for Xbox 360 sold 50,789 copies. Zumba Fitness on the Wii sold 47,702 copies. Kinect Adventures on the Xbox 360 sold 47,268 copies. Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS sold 36,366 copies. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim for Xbox 360 sold 32,744 copies. NBA 2K12 on Xbox 360 sold 30,754 copies. Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS sold 30,387 copies. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 on PlayStation 3 sold 30,001 copies, and Zumba Fitness 2 on the Wii sold 27,964 copies. Moving on to the next week in America, week ending in February 4th, it was Final Fantasy 13-2 was the big winner on the PlayStation 3, selling 425,951 copies. Wow. Final Fantasy 13-2 for 360 sold 152,118 copies. Soul Calibur 5 for Xbox 360 sold 116,429 copies. Soul Calibur 5 on PlayStation 3 sold 110,087 copies. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 on Xbox 360 sold 52,710 copies. Just Dance 3 on the Wii sold 48,036 copies. Zumba Fitness on the Wii sold 45,171 copies. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 on PlayStation 3 sold 40,345 copies. Connected Ventures on the Xbox 360 sold 34,766 copies. And Zumba Fitness 2 on the Wii sold 31,674 copies. So globally, the previous week, the week ending in January 28th, it was Resident Evil Revelations on 3DS, then Armored Core 5 on PS3, Just Dance 3 on the Wii, Mario Kart 7 on 3DS, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 on 360, Zumba Fitness on the Wii, Modern Warfare 3 on PS3, Mario 3D Land on the 3DS, Connected Ventures on Xbox 360, and Skyrim on the 360. Whereas the most recent week, it was Final Fantasy 13 for PS3, Final Fantasy 13 for 360, Soul Calibur 5 for PS3, Soul Calibur 5 for 360, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, which on PS3, Modern Warfare 3 on PS3, Just Dance 3 on the Wii, Mario Kart 7 on 3DS, Modern Warfare 3 on 360, and finally Zumba Fitness on the Wii. So that's what's going on there. As for hardware, let's go to the hardware charts. So we're going to go for the first week ending in January 28th, 2012. The biggest selling console was the 3D... that's global. Hold on a second. I closed too many windows. Give me a second here. All right, let's go to Japan first. In Japan, for the previous week, the highest selling console was the 3DS, which moved 88,730 units. The PlayStation 3 moved 21,906 units. The Vita sold 18,636 units, for the first time surpassing the PSP at 15,687 units. The Wii, 9,620 units. The DS, 1,870 units. I mean, who in Japan doesn't have a DS? Are they just buying another one? And the 360, 1,075 units. Moving on to the more current week ending in February 5th, highest selling console in Japan was the 3DS, 74,159 units there. The PS3, 22,180 units. The Vita, 17,031 units. The PlayStation Portable, 16,035 units. The Wii, 8,576 units. The DS, 1,694 units. And the 360, 1,240 units. So that's what's going on in Japan for, hardware. Moving on to Europe. Just bear with me a second because I do have a lot of tabs open here. Okay, over in Europe, for the previous week, the week ending in January 28th, the highest selling console was the PlayStation 3, which moved 90,108 units. The 3DS, 74,342 units. The 360, 52,717 units. The Wii, 40,465 units. The DS, 24,651 units. The PSP, 21,501 units. The Vita has not been released yet in Europe. The next week, the week ending in February 4th, the PlayStation 3 was number one at 80,093 units. The 3DS, 71,218 units. The 360, 49,430 units. The Wii, 36,249 units. The DS, 23,604 units. And the PSP, 15,881 units. The Vita has not been released yet, as I mentioned. And in the United States, let's move on to the hardware sales for the week ending in January 28th. The big selling console was the 360, which was 92,294 units. The 3DS, 75,012 units. The PlayStation 3, 59,379 units. The Wii, 51,132 units. The DS, 26,346 units. And the PSP, 11,023 units. The Vita hasn't come out yet. The most recent week, ending in February 4th, the number one console was still the Xbox 360, 94,495 units. The 3DS, 71,625 units. The PlayStation 3, 64,130 units. The Wii, 48,610 units. The DS, 25,591 units. And the PSP, 10,644 units. Vita was not released and therefore did not chart. So, globally, the previous week, ending in January 28th, the number one console was the 3DS, followed by PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, Wii, PSP, DS, and Vita was last. Of course, only released in Japan, but it is starting to surge. It's above the PSP anyway. The week ending in February 4th, it was the 3DS again, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, Wii, DS, PSP, and Vita. So that's going to be the show for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Send me your questions and comments. If you want to be on the show, download Skype, install Skype, IM me on Skype, and we'll talk about it. And that'll be it. See you next week.